Hi folks, I'd like to introduce Denise Mercury. She is a registered dietitian at Minuteman, and she will be giving a talk on food labels today, and I'm going to be Vanna White, and I'm going to touch things up at the PowerPoint.
Ro's going to be my assistant today. All right, so like Ro said, I'm Denise. I'm the dietitian at Minuteman. I try and come out a couple of times a year and give you a talk on a nutrition topic. And today is the new food labels. Does anyone read food labels when they go shopping? All right, we got a few. You don't have to, but I'm presenting you with information so you have it if you want to read the label. A couple of questions to start with. What is the first thing you should look at on the nutrition facts label? Hit it again. Do you look at the serving size, sodium, or the sugars? I'm not going to give you the answer right now. We're going to go through the presentation, and at the end, you should know all the answers. The second question, which nutrient is now required to be on the nutrition facts labels? Is it magnesium, added sugar, or cholesterol? Yeah, you hit it again, sorry. Magnesium, added sugar, or cholesterol? Added sugar. All right, well, we'll see. Next slide. True or false? Every older adult needs 2,000 calories per day. You can hit it again, Ro. All right, well, we'll find that one out too. And the last question, which of the following is no longer required on the nutrition facts labels? Calories from fat, added sugars, or saturated fat? All right, well, you got some of them right. I heard some rumblings of the right answer and some of the wrong answer. So by the end, hopefully, we'll have the answers to all of these questions. So nutrition facts labels, we'll talk about what to look for and how to read them and how they can kind of help you when you're shopping. So go on. So we all know they're found on food and beverage packages. They're regulated by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. They're on packaged foods, so you don't find them on fresh fruits and vegetables or fresh meat, but you find them on the packaged foods. This is all the labels are done by the FDA, like I said, so it's not my rules. Just put that out there. Don't get mad at me if you don't like them. And they provide information to help you with your choices of food that you pick. Up here now is the difference between the original label and the new label. So can anyone point out any differences that they see right away between the original label and the new label? So I heard calories. The calories are bigger and bolder. That's one thing. Anything else you see right off the bat? The list is longer. Some of the things are a little bit longer, yep. All right, go ahead, Ro. So there were 6 major changes to the nutrition facts label, and I'm going to go through those today. It was originally expected to roll out in 2018, but that got pushed back a bit. So now the larger manufacturers like, your General Mills and all those big guys, they have to be in compliance by last month, January of 2020. And the smaller manufacturers have an additional year. So in the grocery stores now, and actually for a while, you will have seen both of these labels. So if you're trying to compare products, you'll see both labels in the store right now, depending on the manufacturer and when they have to have it done. So one thing here, looking at this ice cream container, the serving size says 4 servings per container. I only found 1. So we'll talk about the serving sizes on the next slide here. Serving sizes are bigger and bolder now. They're bigger and bolder. The number of servings is easier to locate. And the major change is that they've made the portion sizes more realistic. It's not what you should have. Oh, you already have one? Oh, okay. The serving sizes are more realistic. They're not the recommended serving size, but they're more of what people will actually eat. So that ice cream container, you know, it said 4 servings. Who sits with a pint of ice cream and eats, you know, 4 little servings of it? So they've made it more realistic. Another example of that is like bottles of soda, 20 or 16 or 20 ounce sodas. It used to be 2 servings per container, but you know, everybody who gets a 20 ounce soda will drink the whole thing, right? So they've made the serving size 1 serving per container. So they've changed some of the serving sizes around. The next one is calories. Like we already mentioned when we saw them side to side, the calories are bigger and bolder. Next slide. Yeah, if you can't see it, it's all on your handout. It's just in a different form too. So the dietary guideline recommendations for calories. So everybody always asks me how many calories should I be having. The labels, which we'll talk about in a minute, the percent daily value is based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. They had to pick something that was, you know, for everybody, but calories are individualized, how much you need per day. And this is up here now is the dietary guidelines recommendations. It is kind of hard to see from where you're sitting, but it's based on your age, your sex, and then your activity level. If you're sedentary, moderately active, or active, your calorie levels change. So a 71 to 75-year-old female who is moderately active needs about 1,800 calories per day. These again are general guidelines because that will change based on, you know, any medical issues going on with you. You may need more or less calories, but these are the general recommendations. Next change on the label is fats. Calories from fat has been removed. So they figured out through research that the type of fat is more important than the quantity. So you want to look for more of the better fats, the unsaturated fats. Saturated fat is what you want to stay away from. So on the labels it does have the saturated fat and trans fat. Those are the 2 bad fats. So you want to stay away from any saturated and trans fats that have high numbers. And the calories from fat, like I said, has been removed. The big new one on the labels is added sugars. So again, through research, they've realized that added sugar is really kind of the bad thing that we want to stay away from. I know fats, years ago, fats were the ones we want to stay away from. Now sugars is, as nutrition research advances, they figure out new things and what's good and bad. Added sugars, what I mean by that are sugars that are added during processing, like table sugar, syrup, honey, concentrated juices. So when they're making a food and they add these things in, that's added sugar. They've realized that excess dietary sugar contributes to health issues like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. So staying away from added sugars is a good thing. And they've realized that, you know, it's difficult to meet your nutrient needs if you have a lot of added sugar in your diet. So look for low percentages of added sugar in your packaged foods. So under the added sugar, it's in grams, and then it's also in percentage. So you want to look for low percentages. You want less added sugar. I think you can move on. So the daily value used for added sugars is 50 grams, or about 12 teaspoons. So you want to do less than that. That's a lot. And just as an example, there's a label there for a 20-ounce bottle of soda, of Coca-Cola. And you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but up there it says includes 55 grams of added sugar, or 110% of your daily value.
Can you take the question now? Or you want to
Sure, I can take a question.
Why do they recommend any added sugar?
They don't recommend any added sugar. They want you to have less. We want you to eat less added sugar, but especially don't go over 50 grams is what it's saying. I know it's...
for added sugars is 50 grams, the daily value.
Yeah, it's a little bit... confusing. It is a lot of sugar. It's 12 teaspoons. It's a lot of sugar, but it's one soda. I mean, if you have one bottle of soda, that's 50 grams. So you really want to aim for none, which can be kind of impossible depending on what you're eating. But you don't want to have things that have a lot, is kind of.
See, I would argue that if they said 0, I mean, the daily value, and then force the manufacturers to exclude all added sugar.
Yeah, well, this is where I'm saying it's not my rules.
I know.
I'm just presenting the information. Yeah, no, I know. And I think this way, by showing the added sugars, will hopefully force the manufacturers to change their recipes and put less sugar in when you see visually on a label that it is 110%. So you're getting your whole daily dose there, or more than your daily dose, in one bottle of soda. Hopefully manufacturers, hopefully consumers now have that information and can choose something different, which would make the manufacturers change their recipes. So it's, they can't force the manufacturers to do anything, but putting that information on there helps all of us with our choices. The next section that was updated was the nutrient section. The nutrient section helps you to know how much of a certain nutrient is in one serving of the food. They removed vitamin A and C because through research, again, they realized that people aren't really deficient in vitamin A and C anymore. People usually get enough of that through their normal diet. We do know that people are becoming more deficient in vitamin D, especially us who live up in the northern climates and don't get a lot of sunshine. How many of us have been told by their doctor to take a vitamin D supplement? Anyone? That's very common now because vitamin D is harder to get for us in the north in the winter. So they added that, and they also added potassium. So we don't always get a lot of that, and it's also helpful for people who have kidney disease and need to watch how much potassium they have in their diet. Now the label tells us how much it is, which was difficult to determine before that was on the label. So those are the nutrients required: vitamin D, calcium and iron, which were on there before, and potassium. Those are required to be on the labels, but manufacturers can also add more nutrients if they want to. You'll see this a lot with like breakfast cereals. A lot of breakfast cereals tell you they have, tons of vitamins and minerals in them, and they'll list all the vitamins and minerals on their label, and that's okay. But they just have to have these 4 listed. Yep. And then the other thing that changed is the little footnote there at the bottom, which is number 6 here on your handout. I doubt anybody ever read it in the first place, but they changed the footnote to be what they think is more understandable. It now says the percent daily value tells you how much a nutrient in a serving of food contributes to a daily diet. 2,000 calories a day is used for general nutrition advice. So the percent daily value, that's technically what it means. To explain the daily value a little bit more, and the thing that I think is most helpful is you want to look for things when you're comparing food products. If you look at the daily value, you think 5% daily value or less would be considered low, and 20% daily value or more would be considered high. So there's some nutrients that you want more of, so you want to look for something that has a higher percentage of daily value. And the things that you want less of, you want less, a lower daily value, or 5% or less. Ooh, go back. Back one more. Oh, hold on. Back. There you go. So down here in the green box, the nutrients that you want to get more of in your diet for most people. So look for things that are higher daily values: dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and for some people, potassium. If you have kidney disease, you may not want more potassium. And then nutrients in the red box, nutrients to get less of, things that you want 5% or below. You want less saturated fat. You want less sodium, less added sugars, and less trans fat. So it's kind of an easier way to look at the labels if you look at the daily values to know if it's a lot in there or a little in there. It's kind of a little rule of thumb. All right. So just to sum up the changes in the label, the serving sizes are larger and bolder. Then they updated the serving sizes to be more of what people actually eat. The calories are larger and bolder. They updated they removed calories from fat. They updated the daily values. They added the new added sugar section, so that's one thing we should all watch out for. They changed the nutrient requirements. I don't think I mentioned it. They added the actual amounts of nutrients too. In the old label, it just said the percent daily value. But if you are really tracking a certain nutrient, now it tells you how much of that nutrient in grams or micrograms. And then they changed the footnote. Any questions on the food labels? Yeah.
How do you know that the label's accurate?
It is regulated by the government, by the FDA. So the food manufacturers are required to analyze their recipes, and it's monitored by the FDA. So we should be able to trust what's...
Faith and I.
Yeah, but it is a regulated process. So they should not be lying on those labels. It should be what it is in there. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, if you guys want to bear with me, we'll have a little game. Now you can't go ahead too much, Ro. All right. Hand those around. So maybe you guys can work with each other on it. It's more of if you want to hand those around. So this little game is looking at labels, and we'll look at the labels and see what we think it is. Do you think it's healthy? Is it something that you would choose? Now knowing, some of the new things on the label, we can look at it and see. Does everybody have one? If not, share, because that's all I had. So the first label, can you go to the first one? Yeah, go on. So don't go any further. I've made that mistake before. So the first label here, take a look at it, and then feel free to shout out what you think it might be. What are you looking at first? Did we talk about what's the first thing that you should look at on a label? Calories. So the first thing you should look at on a label, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it earlier, is the serving size. So the serving size tells you gives you information to let you know what all the other information pertains to. So in this case, the serving size is 7 chips. So all the information below it relates to 7 chips. So the serving size is important because if you're going to sit down, we know these are chips, and say eat half of the bag of chips, the nutrition information for half of the bag of chips is much different than it is for 7. You'd have to multiply it by 9 to get what you're actually consuming. So it's important to know the serving size first because that's how you know what the information below it means. So anyone have a guess on what this might be? So the serving size kind of gave it away. It says chips. We don't know what kind of chips yet, but it's chips. And again, it's only 7 chips that this information relates to. So do you think it's healthy? Is it something that you would choose, do you think?
Unhealthy.
Why do you say unhealthy?
Several reasons. One, has 1 gram of saturated fat, which isn't a lot.
For 7 chips.
For 7 chips. Very little dietary fiber. Good news, no sugars, which is good, and no nutrients to speak of. I would call these empty calories.
Mm-hmm. And did you have something to say?
Oh, I would always look at the sodium.
Yep.
115, that's a lot.
It's not too much for 7 chips. So it all depends.
Oh.
I mean, if your limit for
The whole bag, you mean?
yeah, the whole bag, yes, you're way high. If you're eating 7 chips, it's not bad. So this is where it's really relative of what you're actually going to eat. For a snack, 7 chips, not bad. But if you're going to eat a lot, then it's going to add up real quick. So let's show what it is. It is Tostitos. So it's corn chips. Okay, go to the next one. So the next page, it's comparing two similar items. Take a look at the labels and think about what it might be and which one of those you would choose.
Sheesh. The left.
The left one has less saturated fat and no added sugars.
Right.
Yep, so that's A has, right? Yeah, A has less saturated fat by a little bit and no added sugars. The serving sizes are the same, right? They're both 1 cup, which doesn't really give it away like the chips did. What else?
The sodium is 240 and
Yeah, the sodium is 130 and 240. Anyone have a guess on, oh, what was that?
sugars.
Yep, the added sugars are definitely more in B there. There's, what is it, 16? 16 grams of added sugar in B, which is a whole lot more than 0 in A. Anyone have a guess of what it might be?
Diet Coke versus regular soda?
All right, both of you said Diet Coke versus regular Coke. Diet soda, regular soda. Any other ideas?
The winner is?
The winner is, it's chocolate milk and white milk. So white milk was A, where it had 0 grams of added sugar and less sodium and less calories, a little less saturated fat. And then they added a whole bunch of chocolate in, and it increased the sodium, the sugar, and a little bit of saturated fat and calories. So that's the difference between white milk and chocolate milk. Yeah?
What is the difference between 2% milk, 1% and skim milk?
So that's the fat level. The fat and calories are different in those. So skim milk has the least amount of calories and the least amount of fat, and then it goes up from there. So if you're looking for less calories and less fat, skim milk is the best choice there.
Lousy milk.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, it's all choices. So it's, if you like something else and you'll actually drink it and you'll get the calcium out of 1% or 2% milk, that might be a better choice for you. If, you know, you like skim milk, then...
Does the calcium change whether it's 1%, 2% or whole milk?
Nope, the calcium stays the same.
Calcium stays the same.
Yeah.
So what changes it? The fat level?
The fat and the calories, yeah, they just take the fat out of the lower numbers in the skim.
Is chocolate,
Go ahead.
let's say you like the taste of chocolate, who doesn't? And you could either buy chocolate milk and add it to whatever you like to drink it, or mix chocolate powder into water or milk or something.
Yeah, so making your own chocolate milk, you then have the control over how much is added. So if you like the taste of chocolate milk, but you just want to add a little bit in and it would be less added sugar, I would say go that route, because the ones that they make usually have a lot more added sugar than if you put a little chocolate syrup or chocolate powder in the milk yourself, just because then you have the control over it. I don't think chocolate milk is bad. I would just say it's not something you should drink, you know, a whole lot of every single day.
Then there's the concept of dark chocolate, which supposedly is healthy, versus...
it has some more antioxidant benefits than milk chocolate.
milk chocolate, yeah.
But it's still chocolate, it's still added sugar, you know. All right, next one. These ones, again, they're compare. You have A and B there, similar products. What do you think they are, and would you choose one or the other? This one is interesting. We haven't talked about these yet, because there's 2 columns of nutrients numbers on there. There's the per serving and per container. So the serving size, it says there's about 2 servings per container, and the serving size is 1 cup. So then it's giving you the information for per serving, 1 cup, and then if you eat the whole container, it's the amount per container. So this is something that you might eat part of, or you might eat the whole thing, is what it's saying. And it's nice that it does the math for you. If you're going to eat the whole thing, it gives you that information. Any ideas on what it is? What are you looking at?
Yogurt?
It might be yogurt.
No.
What? I'm not going to tell you yet.
Oh.
We got to talk about it a little bit more. What nutrients are we looking at? What is good? What's bad on that one? You think? Take a look at the sodium. Oh. Take a look at the sodium on this one. Be there, if you have the whole container, it's 1,190 milligrams of sodium, which is a lot. And A has 880 milligrams of sodium for the whole thing. So I would say they're kind of high in sodium. No added sugars on either of them, right? Any ideas?
Would it be a canned soup?
There's one idea. Any other ideas?
Is it cereal?
There's another. What did you say?
Bananas.
Bananas. It's only on, food labels are only on packaged food, so not fresh fruits and vegetables. But it does have a lot of potassium, and it does. Don't they both have a lot of potassium? Yeah, they do. All right. They're both 2 different canned soups.
Oh, chunky.
So the first one was chunky, and the other one was the traditional Campbell's chicken noodle soup. So that's why it had per serving and then per container, because most people eat 1 can of soup if they're eating soup, right? And they were both very high in sodium. Yep. Canned soup is notoriously high in sodium. Go on for the next one. All right, and then the last one, it's on the last page. I apologize that they're yellow and difficult to read. Yeah.
Can I ask one question on the soup?
Yeah.
What if it's organic soup?
That doesn't usually change the nutrients in it. Sometimes the organic ones, they'll try to make a little bit healthier. Or it's organic because of the ingredients they use are produced in an organic way. They follow organic practices with the vegetables and the meat and all that goes into it. Organic doesn't always mean nutritionally it's healthier.
Of the 3, what would you choose?
Of the 3 what?
Soup.
I don't know. It would depend on the day. If I'm sick, maybe the regular chicken noodle soup. But no, I don't really eat canned soup. I'm not answering your question, am I? Well, a lot of things with canned soup, I know a lot of people like canned soup. And what I usually recommend with canned soup, if you're going to get it, it's fine. I would say to reduce the sodium, add extra water to it to increase the volume, add more vegetables to it, dump in some frozen vegetables. If you have some rotisserie chicken hanging around or some beans, throw more in there. If you increase the volume of it and put more nutritious things in it, it's going to be healthier for you, because straight canned soup is really high in sodium and doesn't usually have a lot of nutrients in it. So if you can doctor it up a little bit, it'll be a healthier meal.
You know anything about Progresso soup? Because that's a high market today.
I don't know specifically the nutrients of that one. I do know that I've spent time in the soup aisle looking for ones that are higher in protein and low in sodium, and they really don't exist. They're really hard to find ones that are low in sodium and high in protein.
Because it's canned?
Because it's canned. The canning process, they add sodium to help preserve it. So getting something low in sodium is just really difficult in canned soup.
And with progressive soup, you don't add water. Just cook it as it is.
You just cook it as it is, yeah. Yeah, so I would say add water to it to kind of dilute it a little bit to get some of that sodium, less sodium per volume, yeah. All right.
It's right on it, do not add what? It does this.
Well, yeah, because you don't need to, but if you want to reduce the sodium.
I know, but what's the lowest sodium soup? Did you find any that has a low sodium?
No, not any that were, I think we were looking for ones that were less than 600 milligrams per serving, and it's still a lot, but we couldn't find any that were less than 600 milligrams per serving and had, I think we were looking for at least 12 or 13 grams of protein in them, because you want protein to make a meal, and we couldn't find any that were that low in sodium and that high in protein.
You know the healthy choice soups, are those any good?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably lower in sodium than, say, you know, some of the Campbell's ones. But yeah, I don't know all of them off the top of my head.
That's what I was wondering.
There's so many products in the grocery store, and they change so often that I can't keep up with all of it. But that's why we're talking about reading labels. Now you can look at the labels and see, you know, you want something with a low percentage of sodium.
Yeah.
You get the impression or knowledge that the sodium is added strictly as a preservative, or is it for?
It's flavor as well, because sodium is a preservative, but it's also flavor. So they add it for both of those reasons. And a lot of times what you'll find if you start comparing products, if something is lower in sodium, it's going to be higher in sugar. If something's lower in sugar, they put more sodium in it, because sodium and sugar are flavor. So if they take one thing out, they usually put more of something else to add that flavor. So yeah, it's sometimes hard to get to play that game. You have to read the labels to see what it is. But yeah, they definitely put it in for both reasons.
I would say one other thing regarding salt, since we're talking about sodium. Unless you have, my study, unless you have an ailment like high blood pressure that requires low sodium, for all other reasons, if you're healthy, you should take a fair amount of sodium a day.
Your body does.
We came out of, I believe, the oceans, which is a very salty environment, and our body needs.
Your body
salt.
does need a certain amount of sodium to function. You know, people, most people who are aging, you know, their doctor tells them to watch their sodium for various reasons, and none of us need a ton of sodium, but your body does need some to function, or you might end up with low sodium, which has its own problems associated with it. But most of us don't need to worry about adding sodium or adding salt to your food or picking foods that are high in sodium to get enough, because our daily diet usually has enough sodium. You know, the bread that you have for lunch has sodium in it. The milk even has natural sodium in it. You know, so usually we get sodium in many ways. We don't usually have to try to get sodium. It's usually our food supply has a lot in it, so we're trying to reduce it because they add a lot in the processing when we eat a lot of processed foods. All right, so the last one. Again, apologize because it's yellow and kind of hard to read. 2 products, similar. Take a look. Let me know what nutrients you're looking at there, what you think it might be.
Yoga.
Yogurt. Why do you say yogurt?
I just
Again,
put that.
Yeah, that's a guess. What else? Any other guesses? What do you?
That's what I was looking at before, what I said.
It's probably a diet beverage and a beverage, like diet soda or regular soda.
A diet soda, a regular soda? And why do you say that?
Because it has no protein.
No protein, that's right.
And, you know, it has a certain amount of carbohydrate, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Has carbohydrates. One has 14 grams of added sugar and one has no grams of added sugar.
How about orange juice?
Orange juice is another guess. Anyone else?
Like this?
Guesses? You ready to know what it is? It is canned peaches, in heavy syrup is the first one. And then the second one is no added sugar canned peaches. So with the diet and the regular, you were on the right track because the first one is in heavy syrup. So they've added a lot of sugar with the heavy syrup to can those peaches. And then the second one, it has no added sugar. So they actually used artificial sweetener in that one. So the, stevia equal one of those artificial sugars they used to sweeten the second one. And which I like to point out that doesn't show up in the added sugar line because it's not adding sugar or calories. It's a non-nutritive sweetener. So you'll only see that in the ingredients on the label, which we didn't talk about the ingredient statement, but that's where you would know that it has the artificial sweetener in it. Does that make sense?
Now,
Huh?
added sugar can be any kind of sugar, of course.
Yeah, any kind of, nutritive sugar.
Right, so if it was honey, it would have some more beneficial value to get that sweet versus corn syrup.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, it's all just, it's sugar. Sugar is sugar, whether it's from honey or whether it's from, corn syrup or whatever. It's just sugar is sugar in the amount that you're taking in, that we try and reduce the amount you're taking in. It doesn't really matter the source all that much in that sense.
But as a nutritionist, do you see any value in if you need a sweetener to go with honey versus some other kind of sweetener that might be based on corn syrup?
I mean, honey is a more natural sugar. It hasn't been processed as much as like corn syrup or some of those others. But calorie-wise and stuff, it's still sugar is sugar no matter, what source. So reducing all sugars is really the aim. Yeah, that's, in my opinion, it's just reducing any of them is the better way to go. If you're going to have some, it also depends which one you like. If you like a little bit of honey, then go for a little bit of honey. If you don't, But it's reducing, overall, just reducing the added sugars.
Yeah, I try to rule out anything that has corn syrup in it. Why? 2 reasons. One, corn syrup, as we've already identified, adds a lot of calories and everything.
Added sugar.
You really don't need.
Right.
Other than a quick taste in the mouth. More importantly, the corn that's being grown today is unlike the corn that was being grown 20, 30 years ago. They use so many sprays and chemicals on the corn and soybeans for that matter. Almost anything that's grown in the fields is loaded with baddies.
Yeah.
So just FYI, if it has like cereals, anything that's sweetened, if you a candy bar, what might look like, not a candy bar, I meant to say a nutritional bar.
Oh yeah, they have a lot of added sugar in them.
And it's mostly corn syrup.
Yeah, it all depends on the kind of bar, but yeah, they have, you think they're healthy, but they have a lot of added sugar to them.
Add sugar of the wrong type, full of chemicals.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? That is the end. Oh wait, we got to go through the questions again. I forgot about that. Go for it. So what's the first thing you should look at on a food label? Serving size, sodium, or sugars? Serving size, yes, because that tells you about all the information below it. Next one. Oh, there we go. Which nutrient is now required on the food labels? Is it magnesium, added sugar, or cholesterol? Added sugar, that's right. True or false? Every older adult needs 2,000 calories per day. False. The amount you need depends on your age, your sex, your activity level, and also any medical things going on with you can contribute to that as well. Which of the following is no longer required on the nutrition facts label? Is it calories from fat, added sugars, or saturated fat? Calories from fat. Yay! Great job. So I hope you learned something today. You got all the questions right at the end, so that's good. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs.
Yes, and thank Ro for being my lovely assistant here with the computer. Otherwise, I would have had to have been up there yelling at you, and it would have been difficult. So thank you, Ro.